When Jasmine Crockett told the president to start deporting from his own home, especially Melania, she wasn't just making headlines. She was dropping a truth bomb that terrified those in power and exposed the most blatant hypocrisy in American politics today. Those words spoken on live television didn't just go viral. They shattered the carefully constructed image of an administration that had built its entire platform on demonizing immigrants while harboring one in the White House. And the fallout, absolute chaos. Within hours, the president himself was rage posting, calling her an enemy of the people. Within days, her car was vandalized, death threats flooded her inbox, and a congressional censure vote was scheduled. But something else happened too, something they never expected. Millions of Americans who had watched their own families torn apart by deportations finally saw someone speak the truth that had been hiding in plain sight for years. If you believe that power should never be immune from accountability, hit that subscribe button and ring that notification bell right now. Because what I'm about to show you isn't just about one explosive moment, it's about how a single truth teller can crack open the entire facade of American politics. Before we dive into the nuclear confrontation, let's understand who was standing on either side of this political battlefield. Jasmine Crockett wasn't just any congresswoman. She was the daughter of an immigrant who had cleaned houses 6 days a week just to keep the lights on. She'd watched her mother tape quarters to the inside of her shoe so she could make calls during breaks. She'd seen neighbors disappear overnight, leaving children knocking on empty doors the next morning. Immigration wasn't a talking point for her. It was the story of her life. On the other side stood Melania Trump, the Slovenian-born First Lady who had mysteriously obtained an Einstein visa reserved for individuals with extraordinary ability. The same woman who had just stood beside her husband at a Miami press conference declaring that immigrants should come the legal way or not at all. Despite serious questions about her own immigration history that had been quietly swept under the rug for years. The battlefield? A seemingly routine panel discussion at WFAA studio in Dallas that was about to become ground zero for one of the most explosive political confrontations in recent memory. The tension in that studio was already electric when the camera started rolling. Melania's Miami comments were still fresh, her polished smile and practiced words about protecting borders still echoing in Jasmine's mind as the moderator turned to her. Congresswoman Crockett, as the daughter of an immigrant, what do you make of the First Lady's recent remarks? The panel leaned in, expecting the usual political dance, some mild criticism wrapped in respectful language. But Jasmine didn't breathe. She didn't blink. She just spoke. I think, she said slowly, her eyes locked on the moderator, if the president wants to start deporting people over questionable legal statuses, maybe he should start with his own wife. The studio froze. The moderator blinked. For half a second, it felt like time itself had cracked open. Then, like a match thrown into gasoline, the reaction exploded. Excuse me? Another panelist, a conservative radio host from San Diego, tried to cut in. No, Jasmine said sharply, turning to him. You all cheer when he deports a mother who's been here 20 years. But when I point out that his own wife's visa history has been questioned for years, I'm the problem? The studio wasn't silent anymore. The techs behind the glass were wide-eyed. One of the makeup artists clamped a hand over her mouth, and the comments section on the network's live stream started rolling like a slot machine on fire. The host tried to pivot, nervously chuckling. Let's keep it respectful. It is respectful, Jasmine cut back. Respect means truth, and the truth is weaponizing immigration to score political points while ignoring the story inside your own home is hypocrisy. That's not a personal attack. That's a national conversation waiting to happen. If you're shocked by how direct that was, wait until you see what happened next. Drop a like if you believe politicians should be held to the same standards they impose on others. The clip hit Twitter before the broadcast even ended. Someone on set, maybe a camera tech, maybe a junior producer, snipped the moment and posted it raw. No music, no edit. Just Jasmine's voice and the stunned silence that followed. In under an hour, She as an immigrant and Crockett was right were trending across the country. Thousands of retweets, reactions from both ends of the political spectrum, and a whole lot of noise. Some were furious, disrespectful to the First Lady, one comment read. Another radical leftist shows her true colors. But others, so many others, finally felt like someone had said what they'd been holding back for years. I've been waiting for someone to call it out, one woman wrote from Phoenix. My husband got deported last year. Meanwhile, Melania's visa story gets swept under the rug. By midnight, Jasmine's name was on every major outlet. CNN, Fox, MSNBC, even TMZ got in on it. Every clip had the same freeze frame. Jasmine leaning slightly forward, eyes lit, unflinching. But what none of them knew was that Trump was already watching, and his reaction was about to pour gasoline on an already raging fire. The sun hadn't even cracked the horizon when Donald Trump saw the clip. He was in the White House residence, flipping channels with the remote in one hand and his phone in the other. As usual, Fox and Friends was mid-segment, showing the now infamous moment Jasmine Crockett told the world he should start with his own wife. He froze, staring at the screen, mouth tightening. Then came the words that shook the West Wing. "Who the hell is this woman?" An aide, one of the newer hires who had only been working in comms for 3 weeks, tried to calmly explain. "She's a congresswoman from Texas, sir." "Fire her," Trump snapped. "You can't fire her, Mr. President," the aide stammered. "She's elected." Trump's face turned beet red. "Then destroy her." He stormed into the communications office in pajama pants and a MAGA hoodie, slamming his phone onto the conference table. "Put out a statement now. She's done. Write it." Within 15 minutes, his Truth Social account exploded. "Radical left Democrat Jasmine Crockett disgraces America, attacks our beloved First Lady, an immigrant who came here legally and loves this country, shameful, enemy of the people." The post was so aggressive that even some of his longtime supporters in the Senate were caught off guard. But Trump didn't care. He was seething, pacing back and forth, repeating the word disgrace like it was a chant. Want to know how Melania herself reacted to this firestorm? Keep watching. Her response speaks volumes about what's really happening behind those White House walls. While Trump was melting down and conservative media was working overtime to paint Jasmine as an unhinged radical, something unexpected happened. The conversation started to shift from, "How dare she say that?" to, "Wait, is she right?" It started with a retired immigration officer named Charles D. Laurie, who'd once worked at a federal office in New York. He posted a lengthy thread on X, formerly Twitter, breaking down Melania Trump's visa history. "Look, I'm not saying she did anything illegal," he wrote, "but I am saying there were irregularities. Everyone in our department knew her case was handled quietly, quickly, and unlike anyone else we'd ever seen. Jasmine Crockett isn't wrong for asking the question. She's just saying what most of us couldn't." The thread went nuclear, not just because of what it said, but because of who it came from. Laurie wasn't some partisan voice. He was a registered Republican with a spotless career and a history of silence on politics. Then came the bombshell. The Washington Herald dropped a feature piece with a title that said it all: "The First Lady's Missing Year." It wasn't sensational. It was clinical, pieced together from public records, interviews with former immigration officials, and previously overlooked documents. The article questioned how Melania had obtained an H-1B visa as a model in the mid-90s and whether she had done so legally while allegedly working without authorization in earlier years. Despite official statements, there is no consistent record of her employment authorization aligning with her first professional modeling jobs in the U.S. Multiple agencies refused to release related documents under FOIA requests. The piece wasn't accusatory, but it didn't have to be. It asked one simple question. If millions of immigrants are held to the letter of the law, why isn't the First Lady? And then, like a scene from a political thriller, an envelope arrived at Jasmine's district office, hand-delivered by an older woman who refused to give her name. Inside were photocopies of what appeared to be early work contracts linked to a modeling agency in New Jersey. The paperwork listed Melania Knaus as an independent contractor for several shoots, dated months before her official visa approval. If you're as shocked as I am that this information has been buried for so long, smash that like button right now. The media should have been investigating this years ago. As the evidence mounted and public opinion began to shift, the attacks on Jasmine Crockett took a darker turn. This wasn't just about tweets and cable news segments anymore. This was about intimidation and fear. A coordinated blitz from conservative PACs, talk radio, and political operatives was already in motion. It didn't matter that Jasmine had spoken from personal truth or that millions had connected with her words. To them, she'd embarrassed the wrong people on the wrong stage, and there was a price for that. Across AM stations from Kansas to Pennsylvania, pundits called her everything from a race baiter to a reckless socialist. One host in Tucson accused her of using identity politics to cover up a personal attack on a dignified first lady. Another shouted over a caller, saying, "She should be censured, period." In the halls of Capitol Hill, a small but vocal group of House Republicans started quietly drafting a formal letter of censure. They weren't all convinced it would pass, but they didn't need it to. The goal was to stain her, box her into the angry woman narrative, make her the villain in a headline they could pass around before midterms. Then came the protests outside her district office in South Dallas. Not a huge one, maybe 30, 40 people, but enough to draw media. Most carried signs reading, "Respect our First Lady" or "Stop the Hate," but a few held less civil messages. One older man waved a sign with Crockett's face photoshopped into an orange jumpsuit. But the worst came 2 nights later. Someone spray-painted the phrase, "Deport her too," on the brick wall behind her campaign office. The security footage caught nothing but a shadow and the glint of a hooded sweatshirt. When Taylor suggested having it cleaned up immediately, Jasmine stared at the wall for a full minute in silence before finally speaking. "No, let it stay. I want people to see what happens when you speak up. I want them to see that this is the real fight, not a hashtag, not a soundbite." This. The photo went viral again, this time not because of what she said, but because of what someone else had done to try and shut her up. And again, it backfired. If you believe that intimidation tactics have no place in American politics, make sure you're subscribed to this channel. We expose these tactics wherever they appear, regardless of which side uses them. The air inside the Capitol hearing room was thick with theater. Cameras were positioned at every angle, journalists lined up like birds on a wire, and each politician came dressed in either quiet indignation or forced neutrality. This wasn't just a hearing. This was a performance, and Jasmine Crockett was their headliner. The session had been scheduled under the title, "Maintaining Decorum in Political Discourse," an ironic choice considering the subject was a woman who had simply said out loud what many others only whispered behind closed doors. As Jasmine stepped into the room wearing a dark gray suit and no jewelry, the silence was louder than the buzz of equipment. She walked straight to her seat at the witness table, adjusted the mic, and waited. No notes, no aide beside her, just water and resolve. The chair, Representative Glenn Bexley from South Dakota, cleared his throat. "We're here today to address recent comments made by Representative Jasmine Crockett, remarks that some have deemed inappropriate and unprofessional, particularly directed toward the First Lady of the United States." He glanced at her not with anger but something worse, condescension. Jasmine knew that look. She'd seen it in faculty meetings in law school, in courtrooms when she was a public defender, and now in the heart of American politics. "I'd like to give Congresswoman Crockett a chance to explain herself," Bexley said, "before we proceed with further discussion." Jasmine leaned in slightly. "Gladly." The microphones hummed as she took a slow breath. "Let's get this straight," she said. "I've been called here today because I pointed out the glaring hypocrisy of an immigration policy that devastates working-class families while protecting the wealthy and connected. I said if the president is serious about deporting people with questionable legal histories, maybe he should start with the person standing next to him. That's not personal. That's a mirror. If people don't like the reflection, that's not my fault." A murmur spread through the room. Bexley shifted in his chair. "So you're saying you don't regret the comment?" "I regret that more of you didn't say it before I did," she replied without blinking. The exchange continued for an hour, with representatives trying to corner her, trap her, or provoke an emotional response. But Jasmine remained unshakable, calm, composed, and devastatingly precise. When the panel returned from recess, Bexley delivered a half-hearted statement. At this time, the committee will not pursue formal censure. We recognize the importance of free expression, though we urge all members to maintain professionalism in future statements. Translation: they couldn't win this one. If you're inspired by Jasmine's composure under pressure, give this video a thumbs up. That kind of courage deserves recognition. While the media eventually moved on to the next scandal, something remarkable was happening across America. Jasmine Crockett had sparked something that couldn't be contained in a news cycle or dismissed with a tweet. It started with a teenager in Bakersfield, a 17-year-old girl named Liana Montes, whose father had been deported in 2019. She clipped Jasmine's viral line and stitched it into a 20-second TikTok over a montage of family photos. The caption read, "She said what we've all been screaming in our heads." Within hours, the video had over 1.2 million views. By the next morning, it had climbed to nearly 5 million. Comments poured in, some from teenagers, others from adults who'd been silent for years. "My uncle got deported for a paperwork error," one user wrote. "Melania's story has never added up. Why is that off limits?" The TikTok wasn't the only thing spreading. A digital artist from Sacramento created a minimalist poster of Jasmine's face, half in shadow, with the phrase "she spoke" at the bottom. It began circulating on Instagram and Twitter, reshared by influencers, musicians, and activists alike. Someone painted a version on a boarded-up storefront in St. Louis. It wasn't sanctioned, but no one removed it. Supporters began organizing rallies across the country. In Fresno, over 2,000 people gathered in a park holding signs that read, "One law for all," and Jasmine was right. Similar events cropped up in Detroit, Phoenix, and Albuquerque. Not coordinated, not pre-planned, just people responding. One video from a rally in Tulsa went viral. A DACA recipient named Renata standing on a folding chair, yelling into a bullhorn, "My dad was deported for signing one wrong box on a form." One box. If that's the law, then it needs to apply to everyone, even the First Lady. But Jasmine wasn't done. Not by a long shot. She had one more message to deliver, and this time she was taking it as straight to the people. It was a hot Saturday in Austin, the kind that sticks to your skin and makes your shirt feel heavier by the hour. Despite the heat, a crowd had started gathering at Auditorium Shores before noon. People came in waves, families with lawn chairs, young organizers holding clipboards, even a few seniors dragging coolers behind them. No official campaign banners, no national groups backing it. Just word of mouth, reposts, and a simple message. Jasmine speaking at 5. By late afternoon, the crowd stretched past the trees lining Riverside Drive. Nearly 7,000 people stood shoulder to shoulder under the open sun. Someone had rented a flatbed truck and turned it into a makeshift stage, draped in a blue tarp with handheld fans passed out near the front. Jasmine arrived with no entourage, just Taylor, 2 interns, and a plastic folder under her arm. She wore jeans, a loose white shirt, and low-top sneakers. No makeup crew, no teleprompter. As she climbed the platform stairs, the crowd erupted in cheers. Some chanted her name, others just clapped until their hands went red. She stood at the mic, quiet for a second, letting the sound settle. Then she leaned in. "You ever notice how people don't get mad at lies the way they get mad at truth?" A few murmurs, nods. "They say I crossed the line, that I was out of order. But let me ask you, how many times has the government knocked on your door and asked to see your papers? How many of you lost someone because of a system that doesn't care who you are? Only where you're from?" Hands went up. Some folks near the front held up photos. Fathers, aunts, names inked on poster boards. Jasmine paused, swallowed hard, then pressed on. "I said something on live TV that made a lot of powerful people uncomfortable. I said if we're going to deport people over questionable legal statuses, maybe the president should start with his own wife. And suddenly I'm the villain." A ripple of laughter and applause followed. Then came the real moment. "My mother," she said, voice thick, "used to work cleaning floors at a clinic in Odessa. She never asked for anything but a chance. She used to tape quarters to the inside of her shoe so she could call me during breaks. One day, a supervisor asked to see her work permit. She didn't have one. She left before they could fire her. The crowd fell silent. She never stole, never hurt anyone, never made excuses. And she still lives like someone's going to knock on the door and take everything away. Jasmine stepped forward, emotion rising. Meanwhile, the First Lady stands next to a man who has spent his presidency tearing families apart, and we're not allowed to ask how she got here? That's not hate. That's accountability. And if that scares people, then maybe they should be scared. People didn't clap. They roared. The sound traveled up through the city, bouncing off buildings, captured in thousands of phones filming from every angle. By midnight, the full speech had been uploaded, clipped, captioned, and viewed by over 12 million people. Celebrities reposted it. Organizers translated it into Spanish, Vietnamese, and Somali. It played in church basements, union halls, and living rooms in places Jasmine had never stepped foot in. But what truly pierced through the noise happened after the speech. As Jasmine was stepping off the makeshift stage, a young girl, maybe 10 years old, approached with a shaky hand, holding a small notebook. Her name was Marisol. Her parents stood a few steps behind her, eyes wet. Marisol held out the notebook and whispered, "Can you write something for me?" Jasmine smiled gently, knelt down, and took the notebook. She paused, then wrote, "You have a voice. Use it, even when they tell you not to." She handed it back, then stood and hugged the girl. Someone caught the moment on video. That clip alone racked up over 3 million views in 24 hours. If this story has moved you, if it's made you think about the power of speaking truth even when it's dangerous, hit that subscribe button right now. We need more voices like Jasmine's in our national conversation, and we need more people willing to listen. In the weeks that followed, Jasmine Crockett didn't rest on viral fame. She channeled that momentum into action, drafting a bipartisan bill that would tighten transparency requirements around immigration visa processes for public officials and their spouses. It wasn't just about Melania. It was about fairness. It was about setting a standard and applying it equally without exception. One clause required every cabinet member and their immediate family to disclose the same immigration documents that regular applicants are required to submit. Another demanded the Department of Homeland Security create a public annual report outlining disparities in deportation enforcement by income level. It was bold, maybe too bold, but it was honest. "You're gonna get torn apart over this," Taylor warned. "They'll call it political revenge." Jasmine shook her head. "Let them. I'm not here for comfort. I'm here for the mother sleeping with her phone under her pillow because she's afraid ICE might call. I'm here for the kids who stop speaking Spanish in school because they think it makes them a target." She paused, then added, "They can call me loud. I call it necessary." The bill didn't fly through committee. It hit walls. It was gutted. Rewording stalled. But that didn't matter. It sparked something. A representative from Nevada asked to co-sponsor it. A senator from Oregon mentioned it on the floor. Civic groups started running workshops to explain the bill to the public in both English and Spanish. No one expected it to pass immediately, but everyone knew it existed now. It had a name. It had a face. It had a voice. In the end, what Jasmine Crockett did wasn't just about one viral moment or one political confrontation. It was about reminding America that truth doesn't need permission to be spoken. That courage isn't the absence of fear. It's the decision that something else is more important than fear. And perhaps most importantly, it was about showing that when one person refuses to be silenced, millions of others find their voice too. If this story stirred something in you, if it made you think or feel or just see things a little differently, subscribe to the channel. There are more stories worth hearing and more voices that need space. Don't stay quiet. Not now.